Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Monty if you're new here. Today's video is going to be another reading vlog. I started 2 books earlier this week, and this morning I realized that both of them are on my list of books that I want to read in 2025. So I decided to do a video on it. The 2 books in question, one is nonfiction and one is fiction. I am not someone who can read more than one fiction book at a time unless they are in vastly different genre. My brain just doesn't operate that way. So this split has been really nice for me. I've been really liking it. I've also really been enjoying my weekly reading routine. What I've been doing is I wake up in the morning and I read anywhere from 5 to 10 pages of my nonfiction book to kind of wake my brain up and start my day. And then I save all of my fiction for the evening to kind of relax and wind down from the work day. And it's been great. The first book that I have started is 11/22/63 by Stephen King, and I've been wanting to pick this up for many reasons. Number 1, it has glowing reviews all over the internet. Number 2, it's part historical fiction, and I've been really wanting to return to historical fiction this year. Number 3, it's 850 plus pages, so it's also helping me to fulfill my goal of reading longer books. This story is about a high school English teacher who gets, out of the blue, tasked with going back in time and preventing the assassination of JFK. I finished part 1 of the book last night, the first 100-ish pages, and it's mostly exposition. So it's where we find out why this character is being sent on this particular mission and kind of how time travel works in this world. Because it's mostly set up, this portion of the book is a little bit slower moving, but that's not a bad thing. I personally haven't been bored one single time, and I'm really intrigued to see where we're headed. The second book that I picked up is Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. This has been on my radar for a very long time. I've talked about it several times on my channel, and I was finally in the mood to pick it up. So I went to my library and I checked it out. And I've got to say that for a nonfiction book, this one is quite gripping. It's also very dismal. Matthew Walker kicks it off with a bang and goes into the dire consequences of not getting enough sleep per night. So if you are someone who struggles with insomnia or anxiety or both, you might want to skip this one. I'm a pretty good sleeper, if I do say so myself. I would say most nights I get a minimum of 7 hours of sleep, if not more. And then on the weekend, that number goes up significantly. And I also take naps. But I could do better. We could all do better. I also talk about sleep a lot in my sessions with people at my job because sleep is so important for physical recovery. So I'm reading this book for professional and personal reasons. And so far, so good. This weekend, we do have a couple of plans. Tomorrow, we're visiting our local botanical gardens because everything is in bloom right now, and it just seems like the right time to do that kind of activity. And then on Sunday, we are going on a fairly big hike. We're gonna climb a peak that still has snow at the top. So we'll see how that goes. And in between, I will be reading both of these books and taking you along with me. So let's go, shall we? I just woke up from a nap. a 1-hour nap after I got almost 9 hours of sleep last night, which is the norm for me. It's the standard. Every single weekend I take a nap without fail if I have the opportunity to do so. And I'm hoping that Matthew Walker will illuminate me as to why that is something I do so regularly, because my partner cannot nap and I cannot not nap, and I want to know why. I did read some this morning. I also spent a lot of time with my girl Hallie, who is also taking a nap. I can't blame her. She is not my dog. We are dog sitting for the next 11 days and I am so happy to have her. I love her so much. She is my best friend. Anyway, I thought I would share just one tidbit from Why We Sleep with you all. So night owls, people who have a hard time getting up in the morning but then become very alert at night. We exist for an evolutionary purpose. We exist for a reason. Historically, if all members of a tribe were asleep at the same time, that would leave no one available to guard and protect the rest of the group. So staggering sleep patterns like that, having morning larks and night owls, it just ensured the survival of the group as a whole, because it meant that at any given moment, someone was awake to protect the rest of the people. If you're a night owl and people think you're lazy because you have a hard time getting up in the morning, science supports you. We have your back. I'm gonna go lift right over there, and in between my working sets, I will be reading 11/22/63, and then we're gonna go to the botanical gardens and I will update you afterwards. Hi, hello there. It's been a minute. It's been a hot minute since I last updated you. You don't know that because to you it's felt like a snap of a finger. But in reality, it's been almost 2 weeks since I've spoken to the camera, and I wanted to briefly explain why that is. In a couple of months, I am going to be moving to a different state, which means that job hunting, house hunting, those things are in full swing over here. And I will give details on the move at a later date. But for now, what I can say is that I have been really busy and really stressed out trying to figure out the logistics of everything, and it hasn't left me with a ton of capacity to read, let alone film, edit, and post videos, which is why I haven't been very consistent with my content on here. Once I get settled into my new place in a couple of months, I fully intend to return to a regular posting schedule. But until then, it's all gonna be kind of up in the air, and I'm just gonna do my best. That is my little life update. Now we can get into some book updates, starting with 11/22/63. I am on page 322, which is 37% of the way through, and I am loving this. The first third of this book, the part that I've read, it does move at a very leisurely pace. There's one sort of two climactic events that happen, but outside of those, there's not a lot going on. If you're someone that really likes watching a character go about their day-to-day, their routine, then you're probably gonna like this as much as I do. But if you're looking for a book that immediately dives into a lot of action, this is gonna be a little bit more difficult to get into. However, there are still plenty of suspenseful moments sprinkled throughout this that hint at something bigger happening later on, and they keep you curious. They keep you wanting more. I genuinely don't find this book to be boring. I don't find it to be a slog at all, despite the fact that there's not a ton happening. The pacing feels very deliberate by Stephen King. It gives us a chance to really get to know the character, really get to know the historical setting before we get into the thick of the plot. And I've said this before and I'll say it again, but I would always prefer that an author take their time at the start of the book for a greater payoff at the end. And it just feels like that's the direction that we're headed with this. The character work in here is super, super strong. We are reading from the perspective of our main character, Jack/George. Once you read it, you'll understand why. So I've been in his head for hundreds of pages, and I'm going to be in his head for hundreds of more pages. So I feel like I know him really, really well. And even the side characters, they just jump off the page. They feel so alive. And I feel like that makes for a richer story overall. I do want to touch on the time traveling aspect of this book because typically I am a little hesitant with books that involve time loops or like dimension jumping, anything where a character relives a similar scenario or revisits a situation over and over again. Books that fall into this category for me are The Midnight Library by Matt Haig and Recursion by Blake Crouch. Both of those books I thought were conceptually really, really good, but in execution, I found them to be kind of tedious and repetitive. What I think is different about time travel in this book is that when our character enters this time portal, he is always sent back to 1958. And the incident that he's trying to prevent from happening, it happens in 1963. So inevitably, we have to follow him for 5 years, which naturally kind of limits how many resets we can go through. And so far that has held true. Our main character has only jumped back in time twice, so it doesn't feel redundant at all. And I think that time traveling is going to really work for me in the context of this particular story. Really liking it. Now for my nonfiction read, I am 100 pages into Why We Sleep, and honestly, I am so impressed with how engaging this is for a nonfiction book. I just love books that help me to better understand myself. I'm a human, I sleep. This book is basically about me. This is so accessible. It's so interesting. I went into this thinking that I would know a lot of the information in here, but indeed that is not true. I am learning a lot. I do think that once we get to the sleep hygiene section, it's going to be really familiar to me. But up until this point, I have been fully engrossed, really entertained. I'm learning a lot, and I just think it's a great option for a nonfiction book. I would say that this airs on the beginner-friendly side of nonfiction, so if you are interested in learning about sleep and you want something that's not too intimidating, I would pick this up. I am very sleepy right now. I don't know if it's coming across on camera, but Matthew Walker told me at the beginning of this book that if I ever get sleepy while reading it, he wants me to go to bed. And I'm not actively reading it, but I am talking about it and I'm getting very sleepy. So I'm gonna go to bed. I'm gonna listen to this man and go to sleep. And I will talk to you when I'm more awake. 11:22:63 update time. I just got to part 5 earlier this morning, and the ending of part 4 was absolutely insane. It was crazy. Everything that I said in my earlier clips about this book taking its time and moving slowly and not much really happening, things are happening now, and I feel hooked. Even though I've been enjoying myself all the way through, I didn't necessarily feel that pull to the book where anytime I put it away, I was just itching to read it. But now I simply cannot wait to find out what's gonna happen. I'm thinking that the payoff is gonna be worth it, but we will see. So let me backtrack a little bit because I've read like 30% of the book since I last talked to you. In this section that I've read most recently, there have been some really emotionally moving parts. There's been some found family vibes, my absolute favorite thing on the planet to read about. And there was this one subplot that almost got me to shed a tear, which is like incredibly rare for me. The subplot in question, I'm gonna keep it really vague for people who haven't read this, but it involves theater and community and someone who comes into their own and who finds their true talent. And it was just so sweet and so heartwarming to read about. There's also a romance now that I'm a little bit iffy on. It's the one thing that I'm not over the moon about with this story. And I can't quite figure out why I'm so undecided on it. I don't know if it's the way that it's written or if it's just the fact that there have been other hard-hitting moments that have impacted me more. But for whatever reason, I'm not super into this couple. I don't feel invested, but I don't know how their story is gonna end. I have 300 pages left to read, so my feelings on the matter are subject to change. But as of right now, I don't think that it's needed. If you've read the book, I would love to know your thoughts. Did you like the romance? Did you not? And also, what are your thoughts on the female love interest? Because I'm not necessarily vibing with her. The last thing I want to mention before I go and finish this is the main plot line that's marketed on the back of the book, the JFK assassination. The ball doesn't really get rolling with that until the 50% mark. So this book is about so much more than that mission. And I feel like that's important to note. But now that I'm 67% of the way through, that plotline has taken over the story and it's in full effect. And I am so curious to see how Stephen King ties all of these subplots together and how he's gonna wrap everything up. So I am actually flying out to Portugal tomorrow night, and I have other reading plans for while I'm on that vacation. So I have a deadline now. I have to finish this book and Why We Sleep by tomorrow night because I do not want to take them with me. I want to focus all of my attention on my other books. So we have around 24 hours to read 400 pages, which I think I can do. I don't have to do anything else other than pack. That being said, the next time I talk to you, I will be giving you my final updates on both of our books. So I'll talk to you then. I finished both of my books with exactly 1 hour to spare before I have to fly out, so I am going to dive right into my ratings and reviews of both of them. Let's start with Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. The only reason this isn't 5 out of 5 stars for me is that it didn't change my life in the same way that other nonfiction books have that I've given 5 stars to, but I still thought that this was an excellent book. It was educational, it's relevant to anyone who would read it, and it has a lot of great insight into the benefits of sleep. It also gives really great solutions for how we as a society can improve upon our sleep on both an individual and population level. For example, he talks about how sleep is one of the most important things that we can prescribe to people who are sick. But if you've ever been inside of a hospital room, you would know that there are beeping noises and flashing lights, and those things are constantly interfering with a patient's ability to acquire good solid sleep. You can see how that would be a problem for someone who needs to recover. So Matthew Walker does propose a few ideas for how to address that, and I think that's really important. He actually didn't have an entire chapter dedicated to sleep hygiene like I thought he would. Instead, he integrated the principles throughout the book and kind of thoroughly explained why each one is effective in helping people to acquire good quality sleep. And then at the end of the book, there's an appendix with all of the principles outlined in like a one-page summary, which serves as a really great reference point. Overall, really enjoyed this. I think it's a great option for a first-time nonfiction reader who's looking to dabble into something that's not too scary and really digestible. This would be a great pick, and I highly recommend. Now let's talk about 11/22/63. I just finished this a matter of minutes ago, so my thoughts on this are very fresh. I also gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I completely get why so many people have this on their list of like favorite books of all time. Makes complete sense to me. It's such a character-driven story with a slow build for so much of the book, and then you get to the last 20 to 30% and it becomes so action heavy. That last little chunk really focuses on the JFK assassination plotline, and I could not and I did not want to put this book down. And the final scene in this book was one of the most beautiful things that I've ever read. He stuck the landing. I'll say that. I know earlier I said that I was undecided on the romance, but it did really grow on me by the end of it. In particular, our main character's unwavering love for the other party was so lovely to read about. It was good. It was good. Great book overall. Really explores the cost of changing history and how the past harmonizes with itself. That's a phrase that's repeated over and over in the book. And it's really a big discussion about how things are going to play out the way that they were meant to. And I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to say too much because I think it's better to just experience this book on your own. I don't think that this is a new absolute favorite story of all time for me, but I'm so happy that I read it. And with that, I have officially finished 2 more books on my 2025 TBR, and I had a great time, as you can see, reading both of them. I've got to finish up packing and get going for my big trip to Portugal. So I'm gonna leave this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one, whenever that is.